Lion Pride, let's roll. Welcome to the Den, where it isn't a big deal if you aren't a Lions fan, but I would recommend you join us this year. And today we'll be talking about the Eagles Packers game that just took place tonight on Friday. I'm going to go through some of the good, the bad, and the ugly that took place in this game, just so we can get a little recap in case you missed it tonight. So, getting right into it, I will say both teams tonight on offense looked really good. We'll start with the Eagles real quick. Eagles fans, you are absolutely ecstatic based on this game because of that Saquon acquisition over the offseason. Saquon was looking unbelievable tonight when he was running the ball. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 109 rushing yards. I think it was 32 or was it 29 receiving yards? 20, maybe it was 23. 23 receiving yards and a touchdown in the air. If you have him in fantasy, you had a great night. I can tell you personally. And then also, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown were both looking really, really good. It's still one of the best receiver duos in the league, and the Eagles, if they can keep it steady throughout the year, are going to really, really like that. Some of the stuff on offensive line, still looking really, really good, I would say. I think the Packers defensive line is going to be underrated this year. I think it was pretty good this time around, but your offensive line was able to keep Jalen Hurts stable most of that game. The only thing you're looking at is your center, and Jalen Hurts did have a couple mishaps this time round. I think there was a pretty bad false start. That might have been on the Packers, but Jalen and the center, I know that there was a fumble that Jalen wasn't able to get on top of, and there was a brotherly shove that was taking place closer to the end of the game that ended up getting prevented because there was a mishandled the ball and Saquon had to jump on top of it. So offensively, it looked really good. 34 points against a team in the NFL is extremely high, and you should be very happy with how this game turned out mostly. Moving to the Packers offense, Christian Watson and Jaden Reed are the two that I saw the most of tonight. I'm probably going to rewatch this game and I'll figure out exactly where everybody was, but I would say that those two did a really, really good job of getting open and making sure that they were available for Jordan Love to throw to. One thing you're going to look at for the upcoming season is that you get a little bit more production from your tight end room. Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft are both extremely good tight ends, in my opinion. Maybe not the elite, but I'd say they're above average tight ends in the NFL. And they didn't have the production that you might want from them. Just maybe some not getting able to get open, routes weren't there, the coverage was too good at that point. You just want a little more production from that tight end room, and you could have a really, really, really high powered offense. Josh Jacobs. I think this acquisition is going to end up being really, really good. I know Packers fans were not happy that Aaron Jones ended up going to the Vikings this year. And trust me, as a Lions fan, also not happy about that. But Josh Jacobs looked really, really good in that second half of the game. Had some really good rushes, some really long ones. Was able to get down the field when I looked at it and I was like, there's no way he's getting through this. And then he bust off 11 yards. So you have to be really happy with how Josh Jacobs was showing in that second half. You have to hope that he gets more comfortable behind that offensive line and that offensive line continues to be good throughout the rest of the season. Jordan Love made some questionable passes today. I'd say that's probably just rust from the offseason, not practicing quite as much since he was doing it was a hold in this offseason. So maybe just rushing off some of those cobwebs that were there. And we'll get to the other Jordan Love news in just a little bit. Both the defenses need work. And this is not both defenses have really, really bad issues in the entire defenses. There's certain parts that need to get better. We'll go to the Eagles first. The Eagles, their defensive line was looking extremely good tonight. I will be completely honest. Jalen Carter, you've got a couple other people on that defensive line that were just looking really good in my opinion. Able to stop Josh Jacobs mostly in the first half. Then he got a little bit more production in the second half, but overall it wasn't that bad. But your secondary had a lot of blown coverages tonight. So you got to think about what you're looking for to be an improvement from Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, and your defensive backs and safeties, corners, and nickels. You got to hope that they are able to stay in zone coverage, and if when they run man, they need to stay on those receivers and tight ends much, much better, and then make sure they're making the tackles constantly. For the Packers, on the other hand, I would say your DB room was actually not bad at all. It's hard to defend against people like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith because those are very, very high end wide receivers, but they were making good tackles. There was a couple blown ones, but it wasn't the general purpose of that. The big issue with the defense for them, in my opinion, and I'll rewatch this to see if that's the case, was your defensive line was not performing great. Now, one thing I would say for if you want to have some optimism is that this happens to be one of the best offensive lines in the league, and Saquon is an a really good to elite running back. So you have to think if that's the most yards, about 109 and 2 touchdowns that you get dropped on you at the beginning of the season, your defensive line can get a lot better throughout the season, and you won't have to go against very many rushing offenses like that. Hopefully, of course, you've got games against the Lions, who this isn't just bias from me. The Lions have one of the top have either the have the top two, if not the best offensive line in the league, and two amazing running backs. So you have to hope that you can prevent us from running quite as well as Saquon did tonight, because that'll make the play action pass just that much more deadly. As for the defensive back room, Xavier McKinney, I thought was a great acquisition at the interception tonight. So you're really hoping that that continues to be a good spot and that your new defensive coordinator can just keep things rolling into the next couple weeks. You've got a long rest, going over film study, just trying to figure some things out for your next game. For another thing that was kind of iffy tonight, both teams had an uncharacteristically high number of penalties. Matt LaFleur is usually a really clean coach. Most of his players are very clean, unless it's somebody against the Lions medical staff, of course. But the penalties ended up being, I think it was 10 to the Packers and 7 to the Eagles. That is an absurdly high number of penalties per game. And of course, it's the beginning of the season. More penalties are generally called at the beginning of the season than not, just because they're trying to emphasize, especially on prime time, the changes they made in the offseason. But in film study this week, Matt LaFleur and his coaching staff and Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff are going to want to take a look at those penalties and try to figure out why so many were called and try to clean that up before the next game. Because if you get in a really high intense game, especially in the playoffs, and you're that sloppy, you are probably going to lose if you're giving up that many penalty yards to the opposing team. Now, for the final piece, and this is what I was talking about with ugly, is the Jordan Love incident that happened 2 snaps before the end of the game. As most people know by watching that game, Jordan Love did go down with an unknown leg injury. We have no idea. Matt LaFleur in his press conference, media availability after the game, said that there is no update on Jordan Love. And for Packers fans, that should be some good news because you don't have to listen to Twitter. If the head coach of the Green Bay Packers does not know what is wrong with Jordan Love, there is nothing that anybody on Twitter knows, because he is going to be one of the first people to know what is wrong with Jordan Love. Of course, we're always praying and hoping that whenever somebody goes down, that it's just a very, very minor injury, nothing serious. Jordan Love was walking after, so you have to put some faith into the fact that it was just maybe a high ankle sprain or maybe something twisted and he didn't feel like he could properly get the ball out. So just as a Packers fan, just calm down. Don't read into it too much. I would say in about 48 to 72 hours, when they get back to the Packers facility and they get him checked out, that's when we'll have some news update. So just don't read into it much. Enjoy football on Sunday and Monday, and then expect maybe Monday afternoon to Tuesday that we'll get some updates on that. So everybody should pray and hope that Jordan Love comes back. And really sorry that happened, Packers fans. I hope that didn't scare you too much. But that will be it for today. I'm going to do a deep dive into the Eagles-Packers game tomorrow and then do a couple predictions. So we will see how that goes. Lions Pride, thank you for showing up tonight, and have a good rest of your day.